So let me tell you what I've been working on before I get into this. My next book, I have 2 books I'm working on right now. One will be talking about what Islam really teaches, and it will be for educators. I had originally intended for it to be 1 book and to talk about the Hijrah. Well, my next book, it goes with this, is totally focused on the Hijrah and what's happening even to today, but it looks at it from a historical perspective, using Islamic documents, Islamic histories, to show that the Hijrah is something used throughout Islamic history for the purpose of war. I want to read to you from a hadith. This is from the Musnad Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal hadith. This is a hadith from Muhammad. This is hadith number 1671. It was narrated from Ibn Sa'di that the Prophet said, Hijrah, which is migration, will never cease so long as there is an enemy to be fought. Think about this. They then say, after some other names, they say, Hijrah is of 2 types. One is forsaking bad deeds, and the other is migrating for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. Hijrah will never cease so long as repentance can be accepted, for repentance will never cease to be accepted until the sun rises from its place of setting. When it rises thus, a seal will be placed on every heart with what is in it, and people will no longer have to strive. No, you know that word strive there? It's actually jihad. No longer have to fight the jihad. No longer have to engage in jihad. So it's interesting. Again, this is an English translation, so they don't always put the entire a good translation in. So today I'm going to read to you a copy of what will be in my next book, which is, I've done this on one other show, but I think it's extremely important we get this out again. Please, if you'd like, I'm going to end up putting this part on YouTube. I'm going to ask you to share this. This is a very, very, very important piece of information that we need to get the world to know. This section is called The First Hijrah, a Documented Story. Why did Muhammad leave Mecca? It had been his home for most of his life. What could cause a man to send his followers through a dangerous desert environment to a place called Yathrib, which is now called Medina? That part of this story is essential to understanding why Islam calls the Hijrah the beginning of Islam by the Muslim calendar. Muhammad had been a trader and was well liked by men and known by many. He seemed to be able to quell difficulties between clans before he had his first encounter with an angel. The story goes that Muhammad worked on the rebuilding of the Kaaba after a flood wreaked havoc. He helped to rebuild the one claim to fame that Mecca had, the Kaaba. The Kaaba was a symbol of Mecca at the time of Muhammad. It was filled with idols and representations of gods and goddesses. That's what idols basically are. Mecca was known for tolerance of religious beliefs of others. Even some who were Jews and Christians found their faith respected as long as they also respected the beliefs of others. Mecca was a place thousands of polytheists made pilgrimages to once a year. Here they found many rituals, from praying in a certain manner, to circling the Kaaba, to running between the statues, the idols. The Meccans made a lot of their income from the pilgrims that visited every year. The pilgrimage required coordinating events, security, and places for pilgrims to stay. Meccans divide these duties, some benefiting financially, some benefiting politically, some being in charge of such an important event in their area. I mean, if you think about this piece, I mean, if you could make money just because people have to go there, would that benefit you? Oh, yeah. So this pilgrimage required Meccans to respect everyone's gods and goddesses who came to the Kaaba to worship. One of the reasons pilgrims came to Mecca to worship was the presence of the black stone that fell to the earth. The story implies that a falling meteorite fell to earth. It was such a marvel that people in the area made the very place and the stone into a place of worship. When Muhammad worked on rebuilding the Kaaba, while he was likely a polytheist, I mean, if you think about it, why would you be in a temple where polytheists worship or helping if you were a believer in one God? That's important to think about. When Muslims say, well, he wasn't a polytheist, he never was. Can you explain why he helped rebuild a temple for polytheists? It's something to think about. I mean, there's another claim there that it was rebuilt. Muslims say that's where Abraham was. But excuse me, if they are worshiping other gods there, does it matter? It's a good discussion to have. The logic behind it should be simple to follow. When Muhammad worked on rebuilding the Kaaba while he was polytheist, everyone wanted the honor of replacing the black stone, and the matter was being argued out. They decided, this is from Ibn Ishaq, Muhammad's first biographer, it says, to make the first man to enter the gate of the mosque umpire the matter in dispute. They did so, and the first to come in was the apostle of Allah. When they saw him, they said, this is the trustworthy one. We are satisfied. This is Muhammad. When he came to them and they informed him of the matter, he said, give me a cloak. And when it was brought to him, he took the black stone, put it inside the cloak, and said that each tribe should take hold of an end of the cloak and that they should lift it together. They did this so that when they got it into position, he placed it with his own hand, and then the building went on above it. So if this story is true, the cooperativeness of the Meccans with polytheist Muhammad's simple suggestion suggests that he was not just a person who could be trusted at this time, he was also a man of wisdom. Muhammad was under the care of his uncle Abu Talib until he married Khadijah. Life was simple and successful for the merchant family until the day Muhammad's son died. He had sought out the gods and goddesses in the Kaaba, pleading for his son's life. None of them saved him. Again, you can find this information in Ibn Ishaq's, the first his biography, of Muhammad. It is the first biography of Muhammad. It says, until the day Muhammad's son died, he sought out the gods and goddesses of the Kaaba, pleading for his son's life. None of them saved him. And as every loving parent who has lost a son can testify, this devastated Muhammad to his core. According to Muhammad, during this grieving, he was visited by an angel. He went to his wife fearful that he was going insane. And Aisha tells this story. It says simply this. Again, narrated by Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, the wife of Muhammad, we'll just say. The commencement of the divine inspiration to Allah's messenger was in the form of true dreams in his sleep. For he never had a dream, but it turned out to be true and clear as the bright daylight. Again, this is his wife, the child bride, Aisha. Then he began to like seclusion. So he used to go in seclusion in the cave of Hijrah, where he used to worship Allah continuously for many nights before going back to his family to take the necessary provision of food for the stay. He came back to his wife Khadijah again to take his provision of food, likewise, till one day he received the guidance while he was in the cave of Hira. An angel came to him and asked him to read. Allah's messenger replied, I don't know how to read. The prophet added, then the angel held me forcibly and pressed me so hard that I felt distressed. Then he released me and again asked me to read. And I replied, I don't know how to read. Thereupon he held me again and pressed me for the second time till I felt distressed. He then released me and asked me to read, but again I replied, I don't know how to read. Thereupon he held me for the third time and pressed me till I got distressed. And then he released me and said, read in the name of your Lord, who has created all that exists, has created man out of a clot. Read. And your Lord is the most generous, who has taught the writings by the pen, who has taught man that which he knew not. This is from, again, Quran 96, 1 to 5. The Allah's messenger returned with that experience, and the muscles between his neck and shoulders were trembling till he came upon Khadijah, his wife, and said, cover me. They covered him, and when the state of fear was over, that Muhammad, he was shivering in fear, he said to Khadijah, oh, Khadijah, what's wrong with me? I was afraid that something bad might happen to me. Then he told her the story. Khadijah said, no, nay, but receive the good tidings. But Allah will never disgrace you, for by Allah you keep good relations with your kith and kin. Speak the truth, help the poor and the destitute, entertain your guests generously, and assist those who are stricken with calamities. Notice who told him he was a prophet. Did Muhammad figure it out? Was he told by an angel he was a prophet? No. Khadijah and Uncle Raqqa told Muhammad that he was a prophet of Allah, the only God. This was the beginning of a controversy in Mecca, for Allah was not a new God to Meccans. Allah had been worshipped at the Kaaba. He had idols there, along with many other gods. The difference came in that Muhammad began to tell others they were worshiping false gods, and he was not in the least respectful of what others wished to believe. Muhammad would tell tales he claimed were of Judaism, and their God as proof that he was a prophet of God, and as such Jewish people should also respect him. Stories Muhammad told were examples of listening to a pipeline of persons retelling a tale which had been revised many times. By the point he told it, keep in mind, Muhammad had stated he could not read, so he could not view the Torah and read how far off he really was. But it was not just the Jewish people of Mecca who had issues with his claims to be a prophet. Meccans were angered by his claims of serving a superior God to that of the others. Local poets laughed and mocked his ignorance of the actual stories of the Jewish people. Being mocked by poets was something that Muhammad would never forgive nor forget. One time, as Muhammad and his new followers were praying, things got violent. This comes from Ibn Ishaq. When the apostles' companions prayed and went to the glens so that their people could not see him praying, as Sa'ad Abu Waqqas was with a number of the Prophet's companions in one of the glens of Mecca, a band of polytheists came upon them while they were praying and rudely interrupted them. They blamed them for what they were doing until they came to blows. And it was on that occasion that Sa'ad smote a polytheist with the jawbone of a camel and wounded him. This was the first blood to be shed in Islam. Many of the Meccans began to regard Muhammad no longer as someone to be trusted and thought of him as an enemy. Muhammad was 40 years old when he started preaching for Allah. The Meccans sought to expel him for the good of all Meccans. But Abu Talib, his uncle, was a man of power. He decided to still protect him. He treated his adopted son with favor. Because of this, Muhammad was protected. The Meccans recognized his love for an adopted son. They were not without understanding the situation, so they thought they should help out Abu Talib, help him to release his nephew. Again, he's an adopted person, adopted son. His uncle is just, he's adopted as a child. Muhammad, so they sought to help him out by offering another adopted son. So Ibn Ishaq says this: when the Quraysh perceived that Abu Talib had refused to give up the apostle and that he was resolved to part company with them, they went to him and said, according to my information, O Abu Talib, this is Umara, the strongest and most handsome young man of all the Quraysh. So take him, as you will have the benefits of his intelligence and support. Adopt him as a son and give to us this nephew of yours who has opposed your religion and the religion of your fathers, severed the unity of your people, and mocked your way of life, so that we may kill him. This will be man for man. Abu Talib refused and protected Muhammad to the day he died. Tensions grew. The citizens of Mecca boycotted Muhammad and his followers by refusing to trade with them for food in hopes that they would change religions or leave Mecca. However, as in the case of many boycotts, some people crossed the line and gave the Muslims food. Things really heated up when Muhammad heard members of his tribe, the Quraysh, discussing him. Again, from Ibn Ishaq. They said that they had never known anything like the trouble they had endured from this fellow, the fellow being Muhammad. He had declared their mode of life foolish, insulted their forefathers, reviled their religion, divided the community, and cursed their gods. What they had borne was past all bearing, or words to that effect. While they were discussing him, the apostle came towards them and kissed the black stone. Then he passed by them as he entered the temple. Again, he's doing something that polytheists did. He's going to the temple. He's practicing polytheist ways. Muhammad began the prayer walk around the Kaaba. Again, something polytheists did. As he passed, they said some injurious things about him. This I could see from his expression. He went on and on as past them, and second time they attacked him similarly. This I could see from his expression. Again, these are verbal attacks. Then he passed the third time, and they did the same. He stopped and said, "Will you listen to me, O Quraysh? By him who holds my life in his hand, I bring you slaughter." Now, here's my comments on this. If someone makes this threat to your city or town, what would you do? The Quraysh were livid, and yet they did not expel him from the city because of Abu Talib. Muhammad's uncle was his protector. The Meccans did not, however, do nothing. They waited for more of these threats and then attacked the Muslims, imprisoning them, beating them, increasing the pressure of the boycott so that they received no food or drink. Some were exposed to the heat of the desert and exposed to its harshness with the hope that they would renounce the God of Muhammad. Some actually did. Muhammad recognized the dangers and sent some of his followers to Abyssinia for their safety. According to Muhammad Hakel's Life of Muhammad, translated by Ismail Faruqi, Muhammad advised his followers to go to the Christian kingdom of Abyssinia because a king rules without injustice, a land of truthfulness, until God leads us to a way out of our difficulty. So he thought the king was a true good, a true follower of justice, is what it comes down to, and that he ruled the land truthfully. And he was a Christian. Al-Faruqi Muhammad advised his followers to go to the Christian kingdom of Abyssinia because the king rules without injustice, the land of truthfulness, until God leads us to the way out of our difficulty. The Quraysh were angered when they discovered that many of the Muslims had fled. They did not want him to leave as much as they desired to have them change their ways, to change their religion. For this reason, they sent 2 men to the king of Abyssinia to ask for their return. The king had promised the followers of Muhammad safety, so he refused to send them. Muhammad had turned 50. It was now 10 years after his first vision, and many of the Muslims had left to live in safety across the Red Sea. Muhammad was not doing well, earning new converts, and many had left Islam. He was asked by the Quraysh if he would worship their gods, so that in turn they would worship his Allah. He refused, but it appears he did not do so fully. So again, this is from Ibn Ishaq, his first biographer. Pay attention, people. Again, this is before the Hijrah, and so I'm giving you the background. It says, when the apostles saw the people turn their backs on him, he was pained by their estrangement from what he brought from Allah. He longed that there should come to him from Allah a message that would reconcile his people to him, if the obstacle that made his task difficult could be removed. So he meditated on the project and longed for it, and it was dear to him. Listen closely. The passage continues. Then Allah sent down. Did you catch this? It says, then Allah sent down. Here's the quote. By the star, when it sets your comrade, errs not and is not deceived. He speaks not from his own desire. And when he reached his words, have you thought of Alat and Al-Uzza and Amanat? The third, the other, Satan, when he was meditating upon it, desiring to bring it to reconciliation to his people, put upon his tongue. These are the exalted Garania, whose intercession is approved. When the Quraysh heard this, they were delighted and greatly pleased at the way in which he spoke of their gods, and they listened to him, while the believers were holding what their prophet this is often called the Satanic Verses. Now, again, this is written by Muhammad's first biographer. They love Ibn Ishaq. So it's quite a statement. I remember someone getting threatened with his life being taken from him because he talked about this. But it's in documents that Muslims write to other Muslims. Who discusses this the most? The early Muslims discuss this. Oh, that's an important topic you're going to get into, to learn that if people had discussed this, that means it's a legit thing. If it's been discussed with more than people, it's a very important concept to understand. Again, let me continue. This was the type of answer the Meccans and Muhammad's tribesmen, the Quraysh, had been looking for. This was acceptance of their polytheistic ways. They were thrilled, and things began to improve for everyone. The people in Abyssinia heard that the Quraysh as a whole had accepted Islam and began to make plans to return home. Things truly seemed to be blissful for the people of Mecca. Once again, they were a happy family, a cohesive working body, but it was not to last. Muhammad claimed he was visited by the angel Gabriel, who was quite upset that he, Muhammad, had delivered a message not from Allah, and Allah wasn't happy. It is recorded by Ibn Ishaq. It says, we have not sent a prophet or apostle before you, but when he longed, Satan cast suggestions into his longing. But Allah will annul what Satan has suggested. Then Allah will establish his verses, Allah being knowing and wise. How can the intercession of their gods avail with him? Now my comments. Muhammad recanted what he said, infuriating his tribesmen, the Quraysh. This, it seemed to them, meant Muhammad may lie to them to get what he wants. The Quraysh were eager to toss him out of the city, dead or alive, but his uncle Abu Talib still protected him. The followers of Muhammad were returning from Abyssinia when they learned they had been deceived about the Quraysh following Muhammad. They returned home into Mecca in secret or with oaths of protection for their safety. Things got so bad now, Muhammad began to leave Mecca, allies to allow his followers to find a safe haven. But what he was seeking was more than a safe haven to worship as he chose. He was seeking a military ally who would join his people in a battle when they needed them. One encounter did not go so well. According to Muhammad's first biographer, Ibn Ishaq, he went to the Biamir, the Sasa tribe. When Firas gave a report to his people, he told them of a man of the Quraysh pretending to be a prophet, seeking protection and their military might so that he might attack and retake Mecca. It was during this time he met one from Yathrib and shared of his Quran, which Allah had revealed to him. Muhammad recited the phrases. Remember, he couldn't read yet. And the man returned to his people. According to tradition, that man returned to Yathrib and his people, the Khazraj, as a Muslim. Like Mecca, Yathrib was the home to more than one tribe, and not all of them got along. According to one of Muhammad's biographers, Ibn Ishaq, again, this is the first biographer, the Khazraj tribe lived side by side with the Jewish tribe. Difficulties arose between the Jews and the Jews. The Jews would raid the Khazraj. Ibn Ishaq adds that during these times, the Jewish tribe of Yathrib claimed a prophet would be sent, and they would kill the Khazraj. Muhammad's timing could not have been better. The Khazraj were feeling vulnerable and feared that what would happen if the Jewish tribe accepted Muhammad as their prophet. This led to a continual discussion of what the prophet named Muhammad could do for them. According to Ibn Ishaq, there was no home of the Khazraj where Muhammad's name was not spoken of. They all became followers of Muhammad. It became a goal of the tribe to seek out Muhammad before the Jewish tribe found him and claimed him as their own. 1 year later, the Khazraj sent 12 men to the fair at Mecca in search of Muhammad. When they found him, they gave the prophet a pledge of women and later agreed to a military alliance. Meccans had long known Muhammad's attempts to gain a military strength against them. They watched him fail time after time, and it likely became a joke amongst them until he achieved it with the Khazraj tribe. The leaders of the Quraysh saw an encampment of the Khazraj outside Mecca and went in to question them. They had concerns about a group that would pledge a war against them. Again, this is from Ibn Ishaq. With the morning, the leaders of the Quraysh came out to our encampment, saying that they had heard that we had come to invite Muhammad to leave them, and had pledged ourselves to support him in war against them, and that there was no Arab tribe that they would fight more reluctantly than us. Thereupon, the polytheists of our tribe swore that nothing of the kind happened, and that they knew nothing of it. This clearly reveals the Khazraj were using men unaware of a pledge given. Either that or they're good liars. The Quraysh were not as trusting of those who were unaware of the pledge. Something seemed off to them. They returned home to Mecca to investigate further the claim that Muhammad had formed a military alliance to attack their city. It was not long before they verified the claim as being truthful, and they left with a force to attack the encampment. They achieved the goal of dispersing the Khazraj men of Yathrib, capturing one of them. They beat him until it was revealed that the man they had captured had offered protection to some of their own. Regardless of how they felt about what his tribesmen were going to do, they freed the man. Muhammad and his followers remained in Mecca, despite the hardships of persecution and attacks by the fellow Meccans. Little changed until the day Muhammad claimed to have received an order to fight from Allah. Again, he is still in Mecca. This order to fight comes while he is still in Mecca. This is extremely important to understand. It says, this is a quote right from Ibn Ishaq, and this is something that Muhammad is saying. Permission is given to those who fight because they have been wronged. Allah is able to help them. Those who have been driven out of their houses without right, only because they said Allah is our Lord. I have allowed them to fight only because they have been unjustly treated with their sole offense against men has been that they worship Allah. Then and only then did Muhammad give the order to migrate, Hijrah, to Yathrib. The Meccan Muslims left for the 280-mile trek to join the Khazraj, whom they would forever call the helpers. This was the beginning of an 88-day journey. And we think about 280 some odd miles, and we don't think about it being an 88 track, but you got to think about all these people walking. That's what you have to think about. How long does an average person walk? An average person walks 3 miles an hour. Now think about that in terms of a long walk. Muhammad, now 53 years old, knew that if he left with his followers, they would be attacked and likely decimated. He made sure the Meccans knew he was staying. The Meccans were aware of the followers of Muhammad leaving. They had long debated what to do. The debate over imprisoning him ended with the conclusion that the prison would be attacked and he would be freed. Another thought had been to drive him out into a foreign country. After much thought, they concluded that Muhammad's gifted speech would recruit an army to attack them, being no different than the situation that they felt they were already in. The only other solution was to execute him by assassination or other means. Muhammad knew of the plan to kill him, but not the when and where. The Islamic story of his escape from Mecca has him placing his green mantle on Ali, who slept in his bed. This is his son-in-law, slept in his bed while Muhammad escaped. So, he's talking to his son-in-law, puts his mantle on, telling, hey, take my place, pretend you're me, just in case they try to kill me. Does this sound like a brave prophet? Muhammad walked past, according to Ibn Ishaq, he walks past blinded guards who waited outside his house. Muhammad took time to put dust on their heads, but the story doesn't end there. When Ali awoke and moved about, the guards became aware that Muhammad had escaped. Muhammad had escaped to Abu Bakr's house. Previously, Muhammad had asked Abu Bakr to wait to migrate. He and his family had stayed in Mecca. Abu Bakr purchased 2 camels. Wait a minute. He's got a wife and 2 girls. Why is... Let's think about this. 2? So forget the women folk in his family? I have to ask, people, when you ignore your family for somebody else outside your family, I don't consider that being a good man of God in any way. Something's wrong. Notice he did not plan for his family, and here's my comment in the book. Notice he did not plan for his family to take the journey with him. That night, Muhammad and Abu Bakr escaped out a window, leaving Abu Bakr's family behind. According to his daughter Asma, the future sister-in-law of Muhammad, her father left the house, taking all of his money, leaving his wife and 2 daughters penniless. The Quraysh were infuriated at Muhammad's escape from them and offered a reward of 100 camels to anyone who could bring him back. Muhammad and Abu Bakr stayed in a cave below Mecca for 3 days before setting out for Yathrib. According to a recent biography by Abu Bakr, a recent biography of Abu Bakr by Dr. Ali Salabi, it was published in 2012. Published in 2012. The Arabs waiting for Muhammad gave up waiting and went back into Yathrib. It was a Jew who first saw them approaching Yathrib, and he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Oh, Arabs, here is your hope you've been looking for." Dr. Salabi then states the Muslims picked up their weapons and went out to meet the messenger of God. They picked up their weapons and went out to meet this guy. Think about that. That's what he says. It's important to understand this migration had 3 purposes. The first of which the followers of Muhammad knew well. They were escaping to a place they would no longer be persecuted. The second purpose, the Khazraj knew of, that was to become a military alliance for them to defend them from the Jews. The last purpose, Muhammad and some of his followers and the Khazraj leadership alone knew. That was that they were going to Yathrib to grow an army to someday return and attack Mecca. The Hijrah is the beginning of the Islamic calendar. This event marks the beginning of Islam as a political entity, not a religion. It marks the beginning of this political entity that would grow, and it's going to threaten the entire world. The claim that Islam is a peaceful religion is denial of the purposes of the first Hijrah, which are given in the Islamic record known as the Sirah of Ibn Ishaq. Even the account of Dr. Salabi of the Muslims talking about grabbing their weapons to go greet Muhammad denies this. So let's think about this, people. This peaceful religion, when their prophet comes to meet them, they run and grab their weapons before they go to meet him. Does this sound like a man of peace? It is something to think about. Is this not insane? People call this man, and they say things like he's a religion of peace. Why are they running out to meet him with their weapons? Let's think about this, people. This is one of the chapters that is going to be in my next book, and I think, please share this a little bit. I'll try and cut it and put it in.